Welcome back to day 6 of our technical business analyst training series. So yesterday we explored how a bank system works inside the backend, the front end, and the database. But today things are get exciting because your bank is about to talk to the outside world. And that's what we call vendor integration. So today you will learn how external vendor systems are integrated with banking application. For example, um, vendor APIs, so credit KYC decisions or credit bureau service work together. We'll be covering this vendor APIs and integration basics and how, data flow and how we can gather requirement for the vendor integration and how to write the user story and how we can group. Okay, so we are going to use a use case online application, loan application. Customer is requesting a loan. So this information, customer information sent to the external vendor. So from external vendor, we get back the credit score to make the decision whether how much we should lend this customer or should not lend to the customer. Okay. All right. So let me go back to the diagram just to give you a context what's going to happen. Okay. So imagine this is our yesterday's diagram. So this is our microservice. So this is the front end, our customer. So this is our, let's put this one, customer. Okay. So this is our customer, applies a loan. So, sorry. So let me write here. So our customer apply for a loan. Okay, so that's what is start. So let's put the arrow here. So now when this customer apply for a loan, bank says, sure, but we need your credit score, right? So let's see if we have a bank here. Okay, yes. So this is your bank. Okay. So now bank need additional information like credit score. So does the bank have that score sitting in their system? No, right? So it has to ask from another company. So like example, let's put another company, same, sorry, it's too many. So this is not, this one we can call credit bureau, okay? So this is the flow. Now customer applying for a loan. Bank needs additional information. So bank has to get it from a vendor. We can call as a vendor. This use case, we are asking from a credit bureau. Okay. So how do you ask this one? So we are going to ask through a API, right? So we are going to call the credit bureau through the API. So let me put this one API. So we send some information. So we send, let's say this is the John Doe coming to the flow, is asking a loan. So now you are asking from the vendor, hey vendor, here is a customer name called John Doe. Can you give us the credit score, right? The vendor replies back and send with the credit score. Example, let me put this, okay, so just to differentiate, the response is coming back from the vendor. to the microservice. So one is request is coming. This is the entire flow. Customer apply the loan from the web or mobile interface, and it's go through the API gateway. Let's what is our microservice name? Vendor integration service. Okay, so let's put loan microservice. Okay, so for easy loan microservice. Okay, so the request is coming to the loan microservice through the internal APIs. The information record is created here. Loan DB. Okay, loan DB information is created here. Request is created here. So we have to send customer name, OC number, and whatever the request required, and the credit bureau send back us the credit score and the credit history and store it in database, and the microservice will process based on the business logic written here and send back the response to the front end whether loan is approved or not. Okay, so these all will happen like within a second. So without this vendor, external vendor, bank cannot make this decision, right? So now let me show you how I built this application. So here, so this is our microservice. Okay, so we are going to send a request to the vendor. Vendor is going to send back us the credit score. Okay, so let's send a postman request. So this is the post method. Here you can see. So for simplicity, we may so actual projects we will be sending if customer SIN number is available, customer SIN or name. So for just a simple demo, I'm just going to use only the name only. Okay, so this is what we send to the vendor, and this is the sample request. We are expecting the customer credit score. Okay, so let me show you the database also. So here we have the customer name, credit score, and vendor reference, and this is the date. Okay, so now let's our customer name is John Doe. Why John? All right. Okay, so we don't have any record here. So let's hit the database here. So the record is created here. Okay, so I'm refreshing the database here so you can see. So I'm mocking, this is a mock response. Okay, so that's why you see the same credit score here. Okay, so only that I changed the name here. All right. Okay, so let's take a real case study. Okay, so let's learn how to gather requirement, how we can document for this particular project, and how we can write the user story, how we can present to the team. Okay, so let me switch back here. Okay, so before that, I need a blank here. Okay. So this is our project gonna be. So our project, okay, study, whatever you call it. Okay. So let's write ABCD bank wants to automate credit checks for its online loan system. Okay, so this is our project. Okay, so maybe some background context. So currently loan currently the loan officers manually log into a vendor portal. Okay, portal, and type customer details and download a PDF. Okay, download PDF. Okay, so this is what now happening manually, portal. Okay, so this is the background today happening, and attach to the application. So this is how the current process the ABCD bank is functioning. Okay, so the bank wants to automate, we have seen the flow here, right? This flow. So when customer come, so this has to happen with the flip of second, right? So customer apply here, this will go route, and it will go to our microservice, create the request and get the response and make the decision. Okay, uh, let's go back to our use case here. So why it's first question, like it's good to know the rationale, right? Like why wants to, obviously the digitalization. So currently it's slow, right? The manual process are slow, and lot of human errors can happen. Okay, um, so we have to integrate. We need a vendor. We need a partner to this one, right? So the flow is going to be like, so this is the current state for us. Okay, so the future state, let's write what we need. Okay, number one, the system. So we are all documenting like to create our user story. System automatically sends their name. So our case, like I will document everything. Okay, date of birth in the request, what we need to send, and SIN number to the vendor. Okay, vendors API. Okay, so when you have the API document from the vendor, these are already defined. Okay, so for our use case, our demo, we are just sending only the name only here. Okay, so you can add more fields, um, because sometimes on the flow, customer won't provide the SIN number, so name and date of birth will be sufficient. Okay. Number two, the vendor. So what will happen? How the flow works? The vendor returns a credit score. Okay, credit score and summary. Okay, so you see in the response, it's coming a summary. Okay, so vendor reference and yeah, other detail we would have, just the date is coming. Okay, so let's assume we are getting a credit history. That's a normal one. So the system, next one, the system displays it instantly to the loan officer, and and the result is stored in the database. Okay, so let me go to the flow. I will show you what does it mean here. Okay, so when customer applies this loan, and this go to the microservice create the request and send to the credit bureau. So we have already written all the business logic, like, okay, if the credit score greater than 500 and customer income and expenses analysis done through the system, and whatever the remaining dollar and whatever the applied amount. So if affordability is good and there is no other bankruptcy or any other consumer proposal currently going on, um, system should qualify based on the business logic, let's say 10,000 or 15,000, and the response immediately digitally sent to customer, right? So some cases, okay, customer credit score is good, but it's showing there is a bankruptcy file um, 10 years ago or 11 years ago or something. There was a mispayment reported for a small amount, $10 for a credit card payment, right? So credit card is 750 and a small payment, so maybe um, customer doesn't know this outstanding stand, or maybe this recently customer pay up but still it's showing credit. So those kind of scenarios, like the decision can be sent to a manual manual analysis, right? So I'm not showing this one. So microservice can send this decision. Sorry. So microservice can send this one. So this is not going to come from API. So this is coming from uh, manual review. So a bank employee can manually review and call the customer and get clarification and provide the loan, right? So that's what we have written here, the manual review process. Okay, the system displays instantly loan officer or in the dashboard. Okay, so the loan officer can take a look and make a decision. Or if all good, and system should auto approve the loan. Okay, so this step, no mistake, no just instant data, right? Like immediately the system will make a decision, or if the manual decision is need, the officer can take a look. So as someone working in IT, so your first step is to gather the right requirement, and you'll ask question like, okay, so let's insert, duplicate this one. Let's ask the question. What question? Keep on building this one. Your questions. Okay. BA questions. I'll write BA questions. Okay. What data does the vendor need? Okay, this is your first question. We see we have already documented in the previous year, right? So um, this is our assumption. So, but vendor will give the API contract document, so you can find out and what data vendor need, right? So when you are integrating a third-party vendor service, so you have to have your checklist and you need to find out this answer. So usually the vendor documents are um, so many pages, but if you have a checklist like this, so immediately you can find this one, or during a call with the client, with the vendor, you can ask this question so they can clarify. Okay, so this is the first question you want to know: what information from internal we need to send to vendor. Okay, so and also what data format, right? So I'll write field specification or data format. So data specification. So maybe, so this is going to be JSON API, okay? So there is no XML data format or like other specifications, right? Like example, in our database, customer, like example, customer database, date of birth, it's in a like this month, this format. So, but vendor need in a different format, right? So you have to take care of those specifications, right? Like if there is a full name, including the middle name, how to do those, right? So you have to ask these questions and get clarification on this data requirement. And how will errors be handled? So you can have your checklist and you can, so errors mean like, let's say, our, let's go to the problem, okay. So let's say if the credit bureau service is not available, right? So customer is submitting the application. Our microservice try to call the credit bureau, right? If it is not available, how should we handle, right? So we want to have a mechanism. So usually microservice will have a health check dependent service, right? Like a database. So let's say microservice own database is not available, what to do, right? So we are not able to process the requirement, right? So there is retry mechanisms are implemented already. So how to handle this one? But you need to ask this question, right? So we want to, the first you are capturing the happy path. Second, you need to capture the error handling edge cases, right? So unhappy path, right? So this is uh, that case is covered. So do we have log every transaction for compliance? So something, how do we know this one, right? So let's do we have to log every transaction for okay, or store it in the database, or like no, compliance, okay. And what else we can ask? You have to document like API endpoint, right? What is the API endpoint, URLs, and when you're talking sample request and response, right? So example, this is what I'm talking about. Okay, so this is the URL, this is the sample request, this is the sample response. Okay, so this is the response coming, this is the request body. So these are very useful information. Like if you have a checklist, like all the vendor integrations are going to be similar only, right? So we are calling a API, or like the external system calling us, like for asking demographics or something, right? So the structure, the pattern is going to be the same, only the requirement gathering. So you can have a checklist every time you work with the vendor integration. You can just find out this information and your requirement gathering is completed. So next one, so maybe I'll include here. So next one, error messages, right? So like a status code, right? Like example, what happened if, is there any field validation we need to send, right? Example, you see 400 BAT request, and if the server is not available, how to do this one? This everything should be recorded here, right? So the error messages or error handling, okay? And I'm not sure you'll get access to this one, but I'll write, these are covered in the API spec provided by the vendor. So, but you can keep it security encryption, right? Like for the data, how the data send it, data encryption and access token authorization and authentication. These are technical stuff. But if you are really want to know, you can ask your tech lead, or these are documented in the contract also. Okay, so this become your vendor integration requirement document, right? So let's summarize here. So you study the project, what need to integrate here, that's your project or use case, and you have the current state and future state, what we are planning to do, and you have your requirements, everything documented. So what's the next step, right? So we usually, what we do, we draw a flow chart diagram. So we have the flow chart is diagram we are just using from yesterday's. Okay. So this is also ready. So the next step is writing the user story, creating the user story in Jira. Okay. Okay. And let's create a user story in our backlog. So I think you cannot see this one. Let me, I'm not sure if you guys can see this one, but okay. So what we are creating here, user story, this is backend. So I'm just putting, usually you can put, it's a UI user story, or like you can put loan microservice. So because you will be creating more user story, right? So loan microservice, this one, vendor integration. Implement a new API. Okay, you can have it whatever it's user friendly for you, whatever you understand. Oopsie, where it's gone. So it's, oh, it's there. Okay, so let me hit create. So it's created. As usual, we'll open and add the description here. Okay, so the user story, you can break into multiple user story. Okay, but just for simplicity, we can just keep everything together here. Okay, so we can write it from a user perspective. So as a loan officer, okay, and I want the system to retrieve the customer's credit score from the credit bureau, right? So that I can make faster loan decisions. Okay. Okay, so your user story ready. So you can add background. You can, what's happening today. You can attach your, usually it's good to provide the current state and future state as the background, or you can write a summary here. Okay. So let's move on. Acceptance criteria. Okay. Okay. So what we need here, when the loan form is submitted. So that means, sorry, submitted, call the vendor API. So here you call, there are some more technical detail you can add. So should this call asynchronously or synchronously? Those can be discussed also. Okay, so like when loan application, every request is coming, or you want to have a real-time call, or you want to synchronous call, or you want to have a asynchronous call. What does it mean, asynchronous or synchronous call, right? So every request think like independently, can process the request and send to the credit bureau and bring back the result, store it here, process it. So I think it's good to have a synchronous call, so that way the system no need to wait for the next call or avoid deadlocks and other issues. The performance should be good. So that can be discussed, but just I'm mentioning here. Uh, if you have more idea, you can ask those questions and you can capture here. Okay. So response, what we need in the response. So now we are calling the vendor. So response includes the credit score and report ID or something. Okay. Or credit history or whatever response we're supposed to see. So results in the loan review screen. Okay, so this can have two user stories, right? Like storing in the database and showing in the dashboard, because you might need another API like get request, put it in the screen, right? So this one straightforward. We are just fetching, we are requesting the data is coming from the vendor. Okay, but I'll just include everything, so you can just change the user story the way you want. Okay, so if API fails, like error handling we discussed, right? Here we mentioned we want to know how to handle error, so we are capturing those requirements as well here. So error handling, what we have to do. So if API fails, right, show something credit check unavailable, something like that, so that officer know the credit check didn't happen, so we are waiting, or it's went to manual, or can we use the old credit, or something should be handled. Okay, so that's what we need to take care. So log or store. Okay, or mean like based on the requirement. Okay, so recommendation, store the data and log the every request and response for audit purpose or data retention, whatever purpose. Okay, so that's where this user story clean and testable, and you can break into two. One is storing the data and one is showing in the loan officer dashboard. Okay, or you can, it's up to the team how they want to work. So maybe you might need to update the title if you are including those requirements here. All right. Okay, so the next step is to story point. This one, do we have, let me refresh. Okay, so here we have a small point we can update. So this is our entire flow is going to be, right? So we assume the client triggered, client mean I'm talking about the front end. Front end triggered this request, and microservice prepared this. So we are building this right side, data exchange happening from our loan microservice between their microservice or service or API, this one, right? So this we built yesterday. So this is the piece where, so we are not doing this one today. So we assume this is a prerequisite. This connection, this already is already built, right? So we have to integrate this system only. Okay. So this medium complexity, like I would say simple API only, sending the request and getting this one. So maybe the 5 story point sufficient for this one. There is no much detail tester has to verify this one because we can do it from Postman also, right? Like let me show you this one, right? So we can verify from the Postman also what information is coming. So very straightforward. Maybe 3 or 5 story point will be sufficient for this user story. Okay. Again, I'm just giving a rough idea. So it's based upon your team. They can decide. But if you are wondering, like how many story point we should be add for this one, so I would recommend 5 should be sufficient, including testing. Okay. All right. So that's it from. So usually you can keep this one user story for happy path. Okay. So you can create another user story for error handling, or you can keep the um, um, like error handling scenarios here, and you can increase the point here. So maybe let me add here, like error handling, what are the scenarios you can include here, right? So maybe what happened, what if the vendor doesn't, you send all information, doesn't respond. So you can include in a separate user story, or you can capture here also. What will happen if the vendor doesn't respond? Okay, the next one we can system down. Their system is down, right? And network is slow. You can ask. So what we need to do these kind of scenarios, right? The system should show an error message. So it's nice and clean to have this one separate user story, so we know, but still let the user continue, right? So they can wait. Also, communication must be encrypted. We are sending personal data, right? Like a SIN number. All communication must be encrypted because we are sending personal data like SIN, DOB, date of birth. Okay, so our use case, we are not showing this one. So that's why we use API, HTTP, and secure tokens, right? So this you can include in a separate user story. So this is kind of you can use as a happy path. Okay, even you can use mock data to establish the connection. Okay, so now your turn. You can create process map, like you have this document you can use as a base document when you have similar type of project. So this is not really technical. So if you understand the previous lesson, like how to work with APIs and microservice, this would be very easy. Okay. So let's do a quick recap what we discussed. Okay, so I'll show you the request again. So John J. So let me send a request. So let's assume we discussed this user story, our developer built. So we are testing this one. So this is our request. This is going to come to our database. Okay, so we are storing here. Hit button. So John J, the record has been created. So you got the why it's coming 750, because this is hard coded mock data. just for the demo purpose. Okay. All right. Okay. So let's do a recap what we discussed today. Do I have a recap? Okay, summary. So vendor integration means the two system talking through APIs. So it's a good example I can show you. So vendor integration means, so here actually the vendor also have a system like us, right? So this could be a microservice. So integration means two system talking through APIs. Okay. So secure data exchange. We are sending SIN number, date of birth, and name and other stuff, right? So real-time result. When customers submit this request, a flip of second, the request is sent and the response will come back here and decision is made. So login transaction, storing the data, this can behind the scene, this is happening. Okay. So if you can explain this one sentence, right? Like the one we talked about. So you have understood the core concept of integration, third-party integration or vendor integration, you name it. So it's technically two systems, your internal system, your company, your bank or your financial institution system, and it's talking to the external client or external vendor. Okay. All right. So that's it for today. Now let's go back and test your knowledge. Okay. So the first question, what is the main goal of vendor integration in banking? Not only the banking, okay, so because we are talking about the banking use case, banking domain, so that's why I mentioned banking, right? The right answer is B, to connect bank system with the external service, right? So you have seen. So vendor integration lets bank connect external system like credit bureau, KYC, and payment gateway. So there are many examples, but here we use a credit bureau example. So number two, which of the following is a vendor service? Um, the right answer is TransUnion Credit Bureau, right? It's an external credit bureau used through the API. So question number three, what type of interface is used to connect two systems? So very good question. So you learn this one. The right answer is B. So REST API, SOAP API. So the summary is API. So API stands for Application Programming Interfaces, allows secure communication between systems. Okay. So the next question, what is the role of the vendor API in a loan system? The right answer is to fetch external credit or KYC data. It's based on, this is not the case always, like whatever the use case, whatever the project you are working on. So technically we are requesting uh, the transaction related or customer related data or like AML related data or fraud related data to make a better business decision. Okay, that's the answer. Next question, what should a BA confirm before starting vendor integration? The right answer is the API request, response, format, and security and other stuff, right? So when you are gathering requirement, I show you a checklist here, right? So your questions, you can have this everything ready, right? Like a sample request and response. These are very important. Okay. And also the correct field mapping, encryption, and data formats, everything you can keep it ready. Okay. I think we are in question number 6, if I'm not wrong. So what happens if the vendor API times out? Okay. So This is a very good question. What will happen? App crashes, data disappears, or loan gets rejected. So system retries or alert users, right? I'll talk about today this one. So I think so timeout or anything when so there is a mechanism we can build this one retry mechanism. We can configure how many times system can refigure here, right? Um, so those can be done if the timeout happen. And also how we have to code it, we have to provide requirement, how the system handle errors like we have to configure systems so they handle errors gracefully and inform the user, right? So maybe IT send a notification to restart the server, or like if robots are running, if the queues are working, whatever IT ops should be notified, or whoever the business users should be notified the flow is not working, something like that. Okay, so where we are. Okay, so that's the we can use the system retry mechanism and alert users also. So question number 7, what document contains API request and response details? Right answer, FRDO interface specifications, right? So FRD stand for the functional requirement document. It's list detail integration fields, right? So usually you get a API spec or like a detailed BRD from the vendor. So you can see all these details, or you can some kind of documentation. All the vendors will provide many pages are there, so you can find all the information, right? So what is stored in audit logs after vendors call? So why we need to store? That's the main question, right? Why we need to? Because logs help in tracking and compliance audit, right? So API request and response ID is the correct answer. So why we need to store? Because we can debug or if there is anything we need to track. Okay. So question number 9, which teams usually test vendor integration? HR, QA, sales, admin. Easy question, right? So our QA team, QA verifies quality assurance or testers successful communication between systems, right? So they can do API testing here, integration, and when this connection is established, so using Postman, they can do a API testing. So after complete, we can do end-to-end testing from all the way to user interface web to and see verify this flow is working or not. So two kind of testing they can do, but for us the right answer QAT. Okay, integration system SIT we can call as SIAT, system integration testing. Okay, so question number 10, why is encryption important during vendor calls? Why is important? We discussed this one, right? Encryption ensures sensitive data remains secure and compliant. So SIN number, date of birth, names, and other stuff, right? So right answer is B. It hides the customer data from unauthorized access. All right. Okay. So let's jump into our interview questions. Okay. Um, so this is very useful, and also most of the employees are looking for this one as a PA skills, how to gather, how to work with projects like vendor integration. Okay. So tell me, let's start with the question first. Tell me about a project where you work on vendor integration. So this is a typical question. So you can use your use case. So if you are a new student or you're just starting, so you can use our loan project, whatever I show you end to end this flow, you can use this. Our loan project, we had a connect to TransUnion Credit API. So we didn't connect to TransUnion, so this simulation of that. Okay, sorry. My job was to define data mapping and error handling, right? So data mapping mean like here you need to capture, right? Like a name field, how many field length and what data type. Do we need a validation? So if you follow this one, where is our requirement gathering? So you see, uh, you have the all the detail, right? If you fill up answer for this question, and you can confidently answer to this question, right? Vendor spec, clarify field requirement, and tested API responses, right? So you can, if you don't know how to test, you can work with tester. You can learn this one. Okay, so what was happened? So result was integration reduced credit check time from 10 minutes to 10 seconds, right? So why it's 10 minutes? Because today, if you see when we start the current state, it's happening manually with our implementation. So this is happening even, I don't know, like 5 millisecond or millisecond. So it's immediate, right time, real time. So 10 seconds or so more. Okay, but significantly it's reduced. So question number two, how do you ensure security in vendor integrations? So data encryption, right? Like um, we just discussed, right? So let's go through the question. Okay, situation during a KYC project, we handle sensitive customer data, right? So KYC, onboarding, right? When customers are onboarding, they provide their email ID, they provide their telephone number, and we have device related data. How do we know these customers are good? They're not fraudsters. How do we know? So we can partner up with vendors and see, send this information, the new customer coming to our flow, and ask their opinion, extra detail, like, okay, the email, can you take a look? Do you have any previous fraud reported for this email ID, mobile number, right? So these are sensitive information, right? So how do you ensure this data exchange was secure? You don't need to do extra effort to do this one. You are not implementing. It's already there. We are going to use as a BA. What is your responsibility? Make sure these are documented, right? So you should be aware, right? So we are using HTTP, which is API, token authentication, encryption in transit, right? So data unauthorized access cannot be accessed. This one, right? System pass all internal security audits, right? So that's one question. So the next question, what step do you take when vendor documentation is unclear? This is a really good question. Um, like usually vendor documents are like, from my personal experience, like it's very I would not say complicated, but it's kind of boring, like too much informations are there. So maybe you can read the content and see the table of content, which information you are looking for, or you can do a search, right? So vendor API spec had missing field definition. So um, this is really, really, really important. This happened to me also. Uh, like sometimes vendor, they work with multiple clients, right? Like they forget to update their document. They might give the same document to us also, because it's a similar use case for them, right? Like they are just adding another client, right? So maybe the information used uh, in their organization, it doesn't match with our structure. So missing field, or like a field value, so let's say the date of birth match to, not date of birth, maybe we can use name match with 10 characters or 20 characters, but for us it's required at least 40 character or something like that, right? So ID number or something. So you have to carefully take a look when you receive this document, right? So the task, I need to complete mapping for testing, arrange joint session with their tech lead and upload our integration sheet, all the test cases pass on the first try, right? So you can do this one. They can give a KT, knowledge transfer demo. You can work with your tester and you can ask their testing or like a tech lead or someone run some test cases like using mock data or sandbox and validate the field mapping is correct. Okay. So the next question, how do you handle vendor API errors or downtime, right? So vendor API sometimes fail during peak hours, right? Like you can do a performance testing, but these are real scenarios. So I had to ensure a smooth user experience. We built retry logic and clear error message like credit check on, please retry later, right? So these should be captured during the requirement gathering, and you can handle separately in a error handling user story. So user complaint drop by 70%. Sometime when you apply credit card or like some behind the scene, if the decision is made, like if the application is spinning more than 2-3 seconds, so that's something wrong, right? So customer have many choice. They will go to one institution to another institution. So we have to make sure this stress test, performance test, everything is tested. Otherwise, the company will lose customers. Okay. So these are as a BA, you can check this, you can capture this non-functional requirement like performance and everything when you are gathering requirement. So the last question, how do you test vendor integration as a BA, right? So during credit bureau testing, I want to validate the real response. So my task was to confirm field mapping accuracy. So as we discuss here, you can use Postman. Use Postman to test request and compare JSON keys with database fields. Okay. And result found and fix two field mismatch before go live. Okay, so these are typical examples. I hope you understand this one. All right, and also I didn't include the resume portion or the LinkedIn portion. You can include something you can come up with. Work with Project A, vendor integration, KYC vendor, or the vendor name. You can include your vendor name and you can update your resume page and you can capture the same thing in your LinkedIn as well. Okay. So if you are first time learning this one, so you are new BA, just graduating, you can include having extensive knowledge, working with external vendor and how to capture requirement. You can use our checklist. Okay. All right. So let me see if I miss anything. All right. So I think I covered everything. Um, so what is coming next today? We have covered so far everything. Front end we covered, APIs we covered, microservice. You know how to work with microservice. Today we covered how to integrate external system. Tomorrow we are going to learn important topic like data mapping, right? So how the business data map with one system to another system, right? So topic will be covered, identify key fields and relationship and how we can map these things, right? How to ensure consistency between and this one. Okay, I think I covered everything. So I don't think so I missed anything. So we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, everyone.